Freedom within a relationship. This might sound like a strange topic for a horsemanship podcast, but stick with me. It came up while I was redesigning our Liberty workshop for 2026, and it brought me back to a question I'm always circling around. In the world of horses, what does liberty actually mean? In positive relational horsemanship, our style, liberty isn't about giving cues just because there's no lead rope. It isn't about asking a horse to repeat things they already know. And it definitely isn't about teaching tricks through pressure, punishment, or a pocket full of treats. So if it's not those things, what is it? Welcome back to Amazing Horse Country. Amazing Horse Country is a unique and positive style of relational horsemanship. We're down to earth, honest, and well, we just really enjoy horses. I've often described liberty as the moment when a horse chooses to follow, or even mirror, our energy, our focus, and our intent. And for that to happen, we actually have to have those things: a clear focus, authentic energy behind it, and a meaningful intention. Just as important, we need a relationship where the horse wants to be with us, not because they're conditioned to, not because they're obligated to, but because being with us genuinely meets their needs. So in this podcast, I want to explore another way of thinking about liberty. And that is this: liberty is freedom within a relationship. So what does freedom within a relationship mean? There are a few key components I want you to hold close, not just when we're working at liberty, but in every relationship we build with a horse, or maybe even every relationship we build with a person. The first component is emotional safety. By that, I mean the comfort to feel and express fear or vulnerability. Think about that phrase for a moment. Comfort in expressing fear. For both humans and horses, emotional safety means being able to say, "Hey, I'm terrified," and trusting that the response will be supportive, not punishing, not dismissive, and not corrective. Our horses must recognize that when they're scared or uncertain, we will understand. We all know what it feels like to feel fear or vulnerability. Another component is the freedom to choose our own path while staying in a relationship. A healthy relationship doesn't require us to think the same thoughts or move in the same direction every moment. It doesn't mean we're glued together or constantly aligned. You might have that relationship with a dirt bike, but between two creatures with brains, it's impossible, so don't expect it. Freedom to choose our own path while staying in a relationship simply means that the connection remains intact even when one of us has a different idea. Here's an example. I recall riding Zeus in the trees here one day. Out of nowhere, he just turned, away from the group, and headed down a trail. It wasn't my plan, but I went with it. Zeus spent most of his life as a wild stallion. He's connected to the forest in ways we'll never fully understand. So why wouldn't I take his suggestion? What might we find? What did he want to show me? Responding to his thought and action with an affirmation, "I'm still with you, buddy. What are we up to?" was actually exciting. He had an idea of his own that was based on his curiosity, not his anxiety. Or how about this scenario? You're working with a horse at liberty, and your horse drifts off a little, but they're still watching you. They haven't left the relationship. They're just exploring their idea within it. And one more example. On one of Jerry's very first rides, we were just walking around the arena when he suddenly veered off and marched straight through a complex pool noodle obstacle. To my surprise, my response was this: I dropped the reins and smiled. I just let him go. I mean, wow. If he wants to try something brave and playful on his own, absolutely. I can take his idea, shape it, and support it. Not everything in our relationship has to come from me. And that's something we really need to take to heart in horsemanship. The idea doesn't always have to be ours. Another component: respect for departure from consistency. An ebb and flow, so to speak. The contrary would be to hold the horse in a position or posture, or on a path, in effect, micromanaging. The real skill here is to allow drift to slowly occur and slowly bring things back. I find that when working with horses, our job is to supply clarity. The horse's job is to bring some precision to the table. But we can't expect that right off the bat. If everything started perfect and stayed that way, we'd be bored. Keep in mind, a horse can only be precise as the clarity we provide. Also keep in mind, a horse will never learn to be precise in following if we're always on their face. We need to allow imprecision, or even create it. Allowing imprecision is a good thing because then we can, slowly, work at bringing it back, and that's where we become good riders. We learn to be subtle when we're asking changes, using our presentation before the aids, slow and steady and clear. About a year ago, I worked with a horse that had always been 100% handled. The reins were always in tension. This horse was so messed up, he could actually not turn to the right with a rider on his back. He had learned that he had zero input to the relationship, zero accountability, zero opportunity to try and succeed. It is a sad case because neither the rider, the owner, or the trainer is open to changing what they do. And what they do is the root of the problem. Instead, they think the horse has a problem. This is not the case. Another key component is influence without coercion. This is the art of guiding rather than forcing. It's about developing our ability to influence a thought instead of immediately taking the reins. Thoughts precede actions. Our brains, and our horse's brains, are what are responsible for what our bodies do. It only makes sense, then, that working thoughts is critical. And part of that is recognizing that reins themselves are tools for influencing thoughts and supporting balance, not handles for steering or handles for controlling. In connected styles of horsemanship, we always begin communicating with our presentation. That is, our focus, our energy, our intent, our posture, and our balance. We call those things presentation. That's the first language a horse reads. Without that presentation, the aids mean nothing. We're just pulling on their face or pushing on their sides. When we start with the aids, we slip into control, and the horse is robbed of the opportunity to learn how to follow us. And that's a real loss, because horses naturally follow one another. It's a skill they're born with, and they're good at it. So it only makes sense to capitalize on what they're already good at. When we lead with our presentation, we're offering a suggestion, an invitation in the horse's own language. This works because it's genetic. It's built into who they are. When we understand that, we can work with that instinct instead of trying to override it. Another component: permission to evolve. When building a relationship with a horse, both horse and rider need to make changes. With a horse, this might mean breaking patterns, and we can support this by doing something random, changing our mind, or even allowing the horse to deviate on their own. Consider this for a moment. Have you ever ridden a horse and given them an option? Which trail do you want to go down, my friend? What obstacle do you want to play on? Sometimes we may need to do this, particularly when restarting a cue-based show horse. These horses generally need to learn that they can actually follow a person to express themselves and be a horse instead of a robot. This might be awkward for them if they're used to being controlled, used to operating only from a scripted set of cues. But it won't take long before they're all over this. Sometimes that evolution is for us. Dropping our old ideas and thoughts, and maybe even myths that we've clung to, and embracing a way of thinking that's entirely different from what we've been doing for years. Believe me, it's the most refreshing thing you'll ever do with a horse. Another key component is this: permitting disagreement and learning how to answer it. Disagreement is fundamental to any relationship, and it's necessary. Why? Because disagreement is feedback, and as a leader, we need that. There are some questions we need to ask ourselves. Why is the disagreement happening? For the horse, is it confusion? Fear? Is it our lack of focus or lack of direction in our role as a leader? Is it happening because of a negative expectation that the horse has? Maybe we need to manage or change that expectation. Or are we truly asking something ridiculous, like asking a horse to walk through a small puddle on a trail when it's obvious there's a good way around it? In reality, it's essential that we consider the horse's voice as our compass, always. As riders, we must also be listeners, being aware of our horse's needs, questions, concerns, and fears. Riding is really about addressing those in the context of our focus, where we're going, and how we're getting there. I have a podcast entitled Horse Sense. Go take a listen to it after you listen to this show. It's a story of survival. When I trusted my mare, I followed a decision she made, and we ended up living. It could have been a different ending. Let's view this from a human perspective. If you follow us on social media, you'll know that Leona and I spent October 2025 in Ireland as a vacation to celebrate her 50th birthday. If you're human, and you should be if you're listening to this, you'll likely have experienced at some point with someone that being with them every single minute of the day and night can present challenges, especially when there's outside pressures. I have to mention this. Ireland is fantastic. I would go back there in a heartbeat. Beautiful, ancient, mysterious, and so much history. It's everything I love. It was our goal to explore as much as we could, which meant ignoring the touristy spots and discovering the real Ireland. To do that, you must have your own vehicle. So we rented a car in order to get places the tour buses don't go. We discovered castles, old churches, hiking trails, and ruins that are only accessible by car or by foot. In Google Maps, I checked the boxes for avoid tolls and avoid highways. That took us on all the back roads, many of which are barely wide enough for two vehicles to pass. Some were not even that wide. Those were manageable with a high degree of alertness, but the driving in heavy traffic on narrow streets, especially in the busy towns, was a major source of stress. We staged out of several bed and breakfast locations, which meant a lot of driving every day to get to the places we wanted to go, and give ourselves time to wander. Initially, it took a lot of my focus, being on the left side of the road, sitting on the right seat of the car. Really narrow roads with hedgerows right next to the window, and no road we were ever on was straight. Roundabouts every minute. This was a real test of our ability to travel together. And I'll admit, we had a few heated moments. We argued. But it speaks to relationships. That challenge is part of a relationship. That choice is part of a relationship. That opinions are part of a relationship. And especially this, sharing our feelings openly is part of the relationship. And so is understanding, acceptance, positivity, assistance, and sometimes just taking a moment. A relationship with a horse is absolutely no different. What it means, what we both experienced, was this. And I want you to listen closely to this one. Freedom within a relationship is not about the absence of challenge, but about the presence of choice. Choice is freedom. It's the same kind of relationship I personally seek with a horse at liberty or riding. Not one built on control, but one built on communication, adaptability, and emotional honesty. In fact, the more I teach horsemanship, the more I realize it's not really about horses. It's about how we show up in a relationship. Consider an employer and their employees, a teacher with their students, a parent with their children, our partners. Those are all relationships. How do we show up in them? I've had people tell me that what they learned in a clinic helped them connect better with their spouse, manage tension with a classroom full of teenagers, or relate better to their children. Because liberty work isn't about movement. It is not about the horse's body and what it's doing. It's about learning to listen without defensiveness, to respond without control, and to create space where both of us, whether it's our horse or another person, feel safe enough to express. Here's a statement that still gives me goosebumps every time I say it out loud, because it cuts right to the bone of what liberty really is for both us and our horse. Here goes. Liberty is the art of choosing vulnerability. Think about that. We're deliberately stepping into a space where both we and our horse are exposed. Because at liberty, your horse can choose to stay, or they can choose to leave. And that can sting. It can feel personal. But it isn't. It's simply the truth of freedom inside a relationship. It's the same feeling as asking someone to marry you and waiting for their answer. That suspended breath, the moment where you can't control the outcome. Vulnerability is the doorway to every meaningful thing we ever build. Taking a course, writing an exam, walking into a job interview, stepping into the ring to compete. Confidence is born from vulnerability. Partnership is shaped by it. Nothing real ever happens without it. And we can learn to stand comfortably inside it. And that's why liberty work challenges us so deeply. The temptation to control, to micromanage, to force a result, it's always right there. And the moment we give in, everything falls sideways. But when we show up as true leaders, quiet, attentive, and subtle, we offer our horse something worth following. And in return, they offer us something even more powerful, the chance to become trustworthy, precise, and proud followers ourselves, partners in motion. Horsemanship, at its core, is relationship management. And when we practice it with intention, it becomes a mirror, reflecting how we show up with every person, every challenge, every living thing in our lives. Liberty just makes that mirror impossible to ignore. And that's why, as horse people, we need it. Thanks for spending some time with us today. If you've got ideas or topics you'd love to hear on a future episode, we're always open to your suggestions. And if you'd like to dive deeper, we'd love to meet you, either in one of our upcoming workshops at the Seven Tails Guest Ranch or through our online program. You can find all the details at AmazingHorseCountry.com. Just click on Live Show if you want to join us online, or Schedule if you'd like to join us in a clinic. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great week.